Thank you for joining us at SFG Top Performance. Today we have our regulars Charles, Derek, and Jason with us. We have a lot of wonderful topics to cover for you, and we're going to start off with Charles, an update on equipment.
Thanks, Mark. Crops are going out pretty good right now. We just started applying lime this week. Very excited we got that to going. We're already caught up to some combines, so we're ready for some more ground to get opened up. Everything's got the bugs out of everything. Everything seems to be working well. We run some ground anywhere from clear down in Centerville to around here. Getting ready to do some more burn down spraying. We got a little bit of CRP and some knockback on some CRP. Probably do that here in the next week or so. Looks like the weather's going to turn, so that'll get it going. Other equipment wise, we got a dry box for our rogator here last week. It got it put on. It's not calibrated or working. It physically works, but we got to get it dialed in. Toolbars are getting gone through, a couple of new ones. Anhydrous plants are winding down, and we're working on grain elevators. So that's about it.
Well, thank you, Charles. Now we're going to get a current crop conditions from Jason.
The soybeans are a little disappointing, as we knew. We missed the August rain, so we're not going to get as many beans as we thought. The initial reports I've got from yields are anywhere from, in the northern territory, from upper 40s to almost 60 bushel to acre on the soybeans, and in the south, 35 to 40 was what the report I got. So beans are lacking. We've lost the top end by not getting the August rains. Corn, I'm hearing a lot better reports on corn, 175 to 230, maybe even a little bit better than that. Corn looks like it's going to be good. Corn's drying down slowly. I hear a lot of 20 to 20% as I test it and what I see. So it's slow and drying down, but it is drying down. One concern I have is all the green spots in the field. When they're combining that green spot in the corn especially, that looks like a hot spot in the bin to me. It may yield a little better, but it's higher moisture. So, and corn doesn't migrate moistures like beans do as they're stored. The soybeans will migrate the moisture and they won't get hot. Hopefully, they'll balance out and average out, but corn does not do that. So we're going to have to watch as we put this corn away in them spots that had a little more nitrogen and stayed greener, or there were a little bit more moisture and stayed greener longer. So that's one thing we'll have to watch as we're putting the corn away. And
I have a question for you. I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I want to go back to your beans.
Yes.
Most of the beans coming out today are the earlier varieties.
yes.
So everything missed the rains, but do you think that possibly some of the more fuller season varieties and that 4 inches of rain we had a week ago might help them a little bit?
I think it's going to help them some. The fields I've been in, I often see maybe one bean missing in a pod where there should be 3. I see a lot of 2s, and where there should be 4, I see 3. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as the ones that are coming out now. I think the beans will be a little larger. These beans now are very small, so I think they'll be a little larger. So hopefully increase yield. Any bit of weight we can get more bushel. So I think it's going to be a little better.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
So with the soybeans, and Derek, you've been flying the drone a lot on the plot and different things. What are you seeing for dry down and for different things in the plot as you're flying around?
So last couple weeks, been looking at the soybean plot drying down mostly. Corn 2 weeks ago dried down, and now it's just the moisture's that 23-24%. So corn will keep going down, but bean dry down we've been taking a really good look at, and we'll throw some pictures up here on the podcast. But a couple things I'm excited about is that the beans are really showing kind of what you're talking about on the yield. The early beans, they dried down quicker. Those beans are small. Missing some in the pods, but it seems from just looking at them that the later ones, the beans are a little bigger, seems to have a few more pods. Hopefully that last 4-inch rain really helped them. So the plot's drying down like normal, you could say. The early ones are drying out more than the later ones, and I'm excited to get that out and see what those yield results are. But as a whole, it looks like those later beans are going to benefit from that 4-inch rain, and that's generally a normal thing that sometimes later beans can yield, but it all just depends on what August looks like. But as of right now, that plot is definitely looking like the later beans are going to be a little bit better. Corn with the drone and the plot, something interesting I saw early on when the wind was going through, we saw definitely some hybrid differences, that the wind affected hybrids differently. But then when I flew it, it was a week before last, I went back there and it looks like everything goosenecked back to pretty much being straight, where I don't think there'll be a lot of harvest issues. So that's something I'm definitely going to keep monitoring, as we'll harvest the plot probably in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, somewhere along there on the corn, and we'll just see what hybrids are handling that later standability issues. Another thing we've been really excited about here this fall so far is our R7 field forecasting tool. We had a really good demo of it down south where a whole field of corn came out, and we were within 8 bushels from our yield prediction. The whole season, the field forecasting tool said it was about 180, 182 yield prediction for this corn, and then right two weeks before the season started, it updated, and then it even went to 190. So I was getting a little nervous that our model wasn't going to be very accurate, but it came out, and the corn down there over the whole field came out 189 wet. So then when we dried that down, it was about 18.5% moisture. We dried that down, it was about 182, 183 is where we across the scale have that yield. So to have this model throughout the season say, right between 180 to 190 corn, and that's what we ended up with. I'm really excited that this is working, and we'll be able to use that going forward, and it's something that can be put on any cornfield, and we're seeing really good benefits from it. And from this field forecasting tool, we get into these tissue samples that can really help us for next year soil sampling, for next year variable rate. It's just we can use this information in season and actually get some benefit out of it. One test that I want to talk about on the tissue sample side is we had a microsync test, and I've talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, but we're going to put up some of the results from it, the tissue sample results, and we applied some microsync, and that's a micro package of zinc, manganese, boron, and a little bit of sulfur with urea top dress. And we applied that about the beginning of June, and then we put strips of urea and microsync and just straight urea to see if we can see some benefits from using micros in the field. And in those tests that we had, where we applied, we almost doubled the amount of zinc, manganese, boron in the plant. And we haven't taken yield out yet, but I'm really excited for those yield results, because that tells me that that's what was missing in that field. If you get nitrogen right, if you get potassium and phosphorus right, the next thing are these secondary macros like sulfur and the micro package. So if we have these products that can get into the plant and increase the levels, I think we'll really see some good yield benefits. So I'm really excited about that. And like I said, we'll put those tissue sample results up for you guys to see here on the podcast. As we go into looking at these tissue samples, we really want to use those to see where we can fall sample for this year, and then get back into talking about lime. Charles said that we've been applying some lime, and we really want to focus on getting that done this year to help fix the pH problems. And the reason we want to do that is because as we get lower pH, our phosphorus availability especially just gets really low. Once we start to dip below 6, which really is kind of normal from the samples that I've seen, we only have about 30% available phosphorus. And that's a big problem, because if you put 100 pounds of phosphorus out there, your crop can only utilize 30 pounds of that. So then it's relying on the soil bank, you could say, and then if there's just not a lot in there, then we're really hurting on crops. So that's why we reiterated a lot. It's really important to get those fields limed and get that pH correct. Another way to not fix our problem, but alleviate the issues, you could say, is using a phosphorus stabilizer. We use a veil, and what that does is it coats the phosphorus in order to not get tied up by other nutrients in the soil. So if we're in a low pH situation, that phosphorus gets tied up by other nutrients like zinc, other nutrients like those extra hydrogen ions that are in the soil. So if we have that a veil on it, it actually forms a polymer coat around there that the zinc attaches to the polymer coat instead of that phosphorus molecule. So then that phosphorus can be used to get into the plant. And we see huge benefits in either low pH areas or low fertility areas for that phosphorus fertilizer. We can see benefits from 30% availability up to 70% availability by using this Avail product in those situations. I mean, if you have the perfect pH and a high amount of phosphorus, we don't see the biggest benefit, but that's where we really need to take a soil test to see where we can get the best bang for our buck out of those products.
Okay, with a veil you're using on your phosphorus, if you're increasing the availability of your phosphorus for that crop, are you able to cut back on how much phosphorus you need, or you still want to maintain that same level of phosphorus you're putting on, just build your soil up a little bit better?
So we definitely don't want to get into the situation where we say, oh, it's more available so we can cut the rate in half or something like that. A 200 bushel corn crop is still going to take out 64 pounds of phosphorus according to Iowa State. So even if it's more available, if you cut your rate down, it's still having to grab that phosphorus from the soil, and then we're mining the soil. So we need to be putting those removal rates plus a build to get our soil tests up, even if we're using these products, because no matter how available it is, the math doesn't work out to say you can apply less because it's more available. We're taking 60 pounds out, so we need to be putting 60 pounds back into the soil.
So we really want to look at is, let's increase our yield by using a veil and having more phosphorus available, as to just maintaining the field level.
Yes, we definitely do. We want to take those parts per million up, back into the 18 or 20s. I know we've been in kind of a low market area, so everyone's just looking at removal rates and that sort of thing. But if you look at it at a 4-year, I always say it's a marathon, not a race. So if you look at 4 years, it's not that big of investment to add a build into your crop production system.
Okay. We're coming up with fall right now, Jason. We have some growers that Charles had mentioned. We're going to be doing some spraying. What do you look forward to, and what should we be looking at doing any fall spraying on?
Well, the fall spraying, I'd look at your crop fields that have a winter annual problem. If you've historically had a winter annual problem, maybe you should look at putting some 2,4-D on them fields. Pastures, if they're a good clean pasture you can get into and spray. Fall is a time to kill a lot of your weeds. That's all the nutrients and everything is pulling down into the ground. So if you put your chemicals on it, it's actually pulling the chemicals into the root system, where you're going to get the best kill that you're probably going to get all year. And that is, up until 7 days after a killing frost, you have to spray and get a good kill, as long as it's warm enough that the sprayers won't freeze up and we run into that type of issue, because that does not work well either if we run into that. So it has to be warm enough after that to make sure that it's going to work. So I always say October 15th should be the day you look at stop doing that, and have it done before that if you're going to do that. And also CRP burn downs, or any grass burn downs, sod burn downs that you want to get done. Fall's the time to kill your grasses, your perennial grasses. They're tough to kill. And same as any other, fall product, it's pulling the nutrients down to store to come back for spring. So you want to kill that in the fall and spray it in the fall to get all the chemicals down into the root system, and do a good job of killing things, and make sure we have a good kill on our products. And then if it does come back, we have spring to come back and hit it again before our crops go out there. So if we do have a little problem, maybe it's a little too cold or it's not sunny enough or something, we have that option to come back again. So, Charles, the equipment, can you talk a little about the sprayers we have to do this? And
We're using the post sprayers to do that. Is that what you're talking about? As in the
Yes.
best, we got it for the best coverage. You want those small droplets. You don't want a floater out there. I mean, some of that ground's a little rougher, but we're using the post sprayers to get a better coverage on high volume of water. Better coverage right now, and they're ready to go. I guess we sprayed a little bit last week, and I know there's going to be more. So they're ready anyway.
Is there any preparation that the farmer should have on his field? If we're looking at a CRP burn down and it's standing out there 4 foot tall, are we okay spraying into that, or should that have been cut back possibly to get some regrowth? Or
yes, I like to see them cut down and then a couple weeks of regrowth to get the best coverage and kill. And especially if you have any trees or anything that's going to be in the way for booms, it can't be sprayed.
Nope.
It's going to be a problem for your booms. And then when you're cutting it off, make sure you're not leaving that razor sharp stump. Leave something that won't poke your tractor tires or whatever equipment it's going to be sprayed with. So make sure you're taking care there as well. So
okay, all right, thank you.
One other plug on spraying. Anybody that's not a dandelion fan, don't wait till spring. You want to spray it now versus if you see the dandelions in the spring, it's a little too late. You're going to see
Yep.
the flowers. But now is a great time to spray your yard if you're wanting to get rid of that creeping Charlie or white clover or Be a great time. So
Okay. Well, thank you. And as we close out here, last week we talked about the law of common sense. Today I want to talk about recognition for our customers. And what that is, the definition of recognition is acknowledgement of someone else's existence. Well, we go beyond that at Smith Fertilizer and Grain. We look at the appreciation and want to show that to you, that we thank you for what you've done for us. It's very important to us that we do it right for you, and we want to thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of your farming operation. And with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.